I never imagined that a simple piece of plastic could shatter the fragile peace of my household. My credit card, tucked safely in the drawer beside my bed, had always been off limits. Not because of greed but because trust in my home was sacred. Yet that morning as I checked my bank notifications, the digits glared back at me like betrayal itself. $1, $2.78 online purchase. For a moment I thought it must be a mistake. Maybe fraud, maybe a glitch. But deep down something in me stirred. A quiet unease that whispered no, this came from inside. When I confronted my daughter-in-law, Sarah, her eyes widened, not in guilt, but in something stranger, defensiveness. "I was going to tell you," she said, twisting the edge of her scarf nervously. "It was just something urgent." "Urgent?" I repeated, my voice trembling between anger and disbelief. "You used my card without permission, Sarah. That's theft." She swallowed hard. "It wasn't like that. It was for Ethan's school project. He needed a laptop, and my account was empty. I thought, just for a few days." Her words fell apart before they could reach me. My grandson, Ethan, only 8, sat in the living room drawing quietly, unaware of the storm brewing around him. I wanted to yell, to demand an apology, but something about the way she looked, exhausted, defeated, made me hesitate. My son Amir had been working overseas for months. Sarah was alone, juggling bills, managing the child, and holding together a house that sometimes felt too heavy for even me to live in. Still, wrong was wrong. Trust once broken, even for noble reasons, doesn't mend easily. That night I sat by my window, the streetlights flickering against the quiet road. My phone buzzed, another message from the bank. "Your statement is ready." Clicked it open. More charges. Another $230. My heart pounded. This wasn't just one mistake, it was a pattern. The next morning I waited for her in the kitchen. The kettle whistled as she walked in, eyes puffy from crying. "I need the truth," I said calmly. "All of it." Her lips trembled before she spoke. "It wasn't just the laptop," she admitted. "I used it to pay the electricity bill and for groceries last month. I didn't want to ask you again. I was ashamed." Her words sliced through me, sharp and soft at the same time. I remembered my own years of struggle when Amir was little. How I used to hide tears behind a smile, pretending everything was fine. "I could have helped," I whispered. "You didn't need to hide this from me." "I didn't want you to think I was using you," she said, looking down. "You already do so much and I just panicked." For a long moment neither of us spoke. The clock ticked, the tea cooled, and the silence filled the room like fog. That evening Ethan ran into my arms, showing me his new school project. A little model city with paper roads and cardboard houses. "Mom helped me build it," he said proudly. "She said you'll like it because it looks like your old hometown." I smiled faintly, my heart aching. The child's innocence wrapped around the guilt that hung between his mother and me. Later that night I checked my drawer again. My card was still there, untouched since the last time. I took it out, stared at it for a moment, then placed it on the kitchen table the next morning with a note beside it. "Next time just ask. Trust grows when we speak, not when we hide." When Sarah saw it, tears welled in her eyes. She nodded slowly, then whispered, "Thank you." I thought it was over, but peace has a strange way of fading too soon. 2 weeks later, another message from the bank appeared. Not a large transaction, but enough to make my pulse race. $80 grocery store. I stared at the screen, unable to breathe for a moment. It wasn't the amount, it was the message it carried. Had she done it again? I walked quietly to the living room where she was folding laundry. She looked up, sensing something in my expression. "What happened?" she asked softly. I held out my phone. "You told me it wouldn't happen again." Her eyes widened. "I swear I didn't." She stopped mid-sentence, frowning. "Wait, that store's near Ethan's school. I didn't go there." Something in her tone made me pause. We checked together. The charge had a different time, midday, when she was volunteering at the community center. A chill ran through me. Someone else had used it. Sarah and I sat side by side at the kitchen table, scrolling through the statement, tracing every purchase. There were a few small, unnoticed ones, $15 here, $20 there, dating back weeks. Purchases neither of us had made. "Could someone have copied it?" she whispered. I nodded slowly. Maybe. But in truth, my thoughts went somewhere darker. Someone inside could have taken the number before. A repairman, a delivery worker, maybe even someone from the online orders she'd placed. That night, I called the bank and froze the card. They promised to investigate, but I barely slept. Betrayal once again had seeped into my home, but this time I didn't know where it came from. The next morning, Sarah handed me a cup of tea. "We'll fix this," she said quietly. "Together." For the first time in months, I saw her not as the woman who'd broken my trust, but as someone who'd been trying to survive in a world that keeps testing her strength. Still, something deep in my heart told me this wasn't over. Not yet. I kept thinking about that credit card, about how easily something so small could create waves so wide. The bank promised to investigate, but every time my phone buzzed, I felt that same knot twist inside me. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about the constant feeling that someone somewhere was quietly crossing the line between my world and theirs. Over the next few days, Sarah and I tried to go on with our routines. I cooked dinner while she helped Ethan with his homework. Sometimes we even shared quiet smiles again. But underneath it all, there was a shadow neither of us could name. Every time I looked at her, I saw both guilt and fear. Every time she looked at me, she saw doubt. A week later, the bank called. They confirmed what I had suspected. The card number had been used online through a saved merchant account. Whoever had it wasn't physically near us. They had the number. The bank representative's voice was calm, professional, reassuring even. They'd refund the fraudulent charges, issue a new card, and block the old one. It should have felt like closure, but it didn't. When I hung up, Sarah asked, "Was it really stolen?" "Yes," I said. "You weren't lying. Someone else had the number." She exhaled sharply, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you for believing me." But I didn't answer. Because belief is complicated, it's not something you can just turn on like a switch. It takes time and silence and sometimes pain. Later that night, I went into my room and opened the drawer where the card used to be. I stared at the empty space, the soft impression it had left behind. It's strange how objects carry memories, how something as simple as a drawer can feel heavy with what's been lost and what's been learned. As I was about to close it, I noticed something else. A small folded paper tucked behind the stack of old bills. I pulled it out. It was a handwritten note, creased and faded, probably something I'd long forgotten. But when I unfolded it, my breath caught. It wasn't mine. It was Amir's handwriting. "Mom, if anything ever happens and you find this, please know Sarah's doing her best. Life is harder for her than she lets on. Don't judge too quickly. She hides her pain because she doesn't want you to worry." The note must have been from months ago, maybe even before he left for his job abroad. My eyes stung as I read it again. He had always been the bridge between us, the calm between two storms. Now I understood why he had asked me to be patient, why he always spoke so softly about her. I folded the note carefully and placed it back. For the first time, I didn't feel angry anymore. Just tired. Tired of the tension, the suspicions, the misunderstandings that had grown like weeds between us. The next morning, I found Sarah sitting on the porch with a cup of tea, staring out at the street where Ethan was playing with his friends. Her face looked softer in the sunlight, her eyes distant. "I found a note from Amir," I said quietly, sitting beside her. Her fingers tightened around the cup. "A note. He wrote it before he left. Said you were doing your best." She looked down and a single tear slid down her cheek. "He always understood me," she whispered. "More than I understood myself sometimes." We sat there for a long while, not saying much. The neighborhood was calm, the air filled with the laughter of children and the rustle of leaves. And in that silence, something inside me shifted. An understanding, fragile but real. In the days that followed, we started sharing things again. Small things at first. I taught her how to make the spicy lentil stew Amir loved. She showed me how to use the grocery delivery app she had started depending on. We even watched an old drama series together after Ethan went to bed, laughing at how ridiculous the storylines were. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Then one evening, as we sat in the living room, Sarah's phone buzzed. She frowned. "It's from Amir," she said, smiling faintly. "He's coming home next month." The relief that filled her face was so raw, so pure, that it made my chest ache. She turned the phone toward me, showing his message. Just a few lines, but filled with warmth. Tell Mom I miss her cooking. And tell Ethan to be ready for a football match when I get back. I smiled. He'll be thrilled. But as I looked at her, I realized there was still something unresolved. Something she hadn't told me yet. I could see it in the way her eyes flickered away, the way her hands trembled slightly as she put the phone down. What is it? I asked softly. She hesitated, then said, There's something I didn't tell you about that first time. With the card. My stomach tightened again. Go on. She looked at me, guilt returning to her face. It wasn't just the laptop or the bills. I also bought something else, a ticket. For Amir's surprise visit. I wanted to bring him home early for Ethan's birthday, but then his company delayed his leave. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought if it worked out it would be a gift. But when it didn't, I felt stupid. That's why I never mentioned it. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. The irony of it all. She had used my card to try to give me back the very person I'd been missing most. I sighed slowly. You should have told me, I said. I know, she whispered. I just wanted to make things better. I always seem to make them worse. Her words broke something inside me. I reached out and placed my hand over hers. You didn't make them worse. You just made them human. She looked up, eyes glistening. Do you forgive me? Forgiveness isn't the hard part, I said. Learning how to trust again, that's what takes time. But we'll get there. She nodded, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. Outside, the streetlights flickered on one by one, and the day slowly folded into night. Ethan ran in moments later, clutching a crumpled drawing of our family. Look, Grandma. It's you, Mom, Dad, and me. I drew us together because Dad's coming home soon. I took the drawing from his small hands and smiled. His innocence was a reminder of what truly mattered. The bond that tied us all, fragile but still holding. I looked at Sarah, then back at Ethan. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something close to peace, something that whispered maybe, just maybe, we could still rebuild what had been broken. When Amir finally returned home, the air in the house felt different. Lighter, yet charged with emotions that had been waiting to unfold for months. I watched him step through the doorway with that same calm smile he'd always had, the kind that made every chaos seem small. Sarah ran to him first, her voice trembling as she said his name. Ethan followed, shouting, Dad! With pure joy, wrapping his little arms around his father's waist. I stood a few steps away, unable to speak, my eyes watering as I took in the sight of my family together again. The one thing I had been yearning for more than forgiveness, more than explanations. When Amir finally looked at me, he walked over and hugged me tightly. I missed you, Mom, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I missed this house, your food, everything. For a moment, everything else faded. The misunderstandings, the arguments, the unspoken guilt that had hung between us all. It was as if time had rewound, bringing us back to the very beginning, before pain and mistrust had crept in. But I knew better than to pretend the cracks weren't there. The beauty of family isn't in pretending everything's perfect. It's in deciding to love despite the imperfections. That night, we sat together at the dining table for the first time in what felt like years. The food tasted better, maybe because it was seasoned with laughter again. Amir told stories from his work overseas, Sarah laughed shyly beside him, and Ethan kept interrupting to show his father every drawing, every little achievement he had saved. I didn't say much. I just watched them, soaking in the sound of life returning to the walls that had been too quiet for too long. After dinner, Amir and I stepped outside. The night was cool, the sky heavy with stars. He leaned against the railing, quiet for a moment before speaking. Sarah told me about what happened, he said softly. About the card. I nodded. I figured she would. She was scared, he said, glancing at me. Not of you, but of disappointing you. She looks up to you more than you think. I sighed. She's been through enough. I wish she'd just trusted me. She's learning, he replied. We all are. He looked at me with that same boyish sincerity I remembered from when he was young. Mom, you've always been our strength. But sometimes strength can look a lot like distance. Sarah didn't need judgment. She needed understanding. Thank you for giving her that. His words stayed with me long after we went inside. I couldn't sleep that night. I walked through the quiet house, glancing into Ethan's room where he slept peacefully between his parents. His little hand rested on Sarah's shoulder, Her face relaxed for the first time in months. It struck me then that forgiveness wasn't something you give once. It's something you live every day, in patience, in trust, in choosing to move forward when the past still tugs at your sleeve. The next morning, the sun poured through the curtains like a blessing. I brewed coffee while humming softly to myself. Sarah joined me soon after, her hair still damp from the shower, wearing that shy, cautious smile she always wore when she wasn't sure how to start. "Good morning," she said gently. "Morning," I replied, handing her a cup. We stood in silence for a while before she spoke again. "I wanted to thank you for not giving up on me." "Your family," I said. "We don't give up on family. We stumble, we argue, we hurt, but we keep going." Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve how kind you've been." I looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Maybe not. But kindness isn't about who deserves it. It's about who needs it." That morning, something shifted between us for good. The weight of guilt was replaced by gratitude, and the tension that had once filled the house melted away. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, like sunlight creeping through curtains after a long night. Days turned into weeks, and life began to settle into its natural rhythm again. Amir started a new job locally, Ethan went back to school with stories of his father's return, and Sarah began volunteering at the library. I watched her slowly rediscover herself, no longer walking on eggshells, no longer afraid of being misunderstood. One evening, while cleaning up after dinner, Sarah handed me a small envelope. "I've been meaning to give you this," she said, her voice steady. Inside was a handwritten note. My eyes skimmed over the words, short, simple but powerful. "For every mistake I made, I'm sorry. For every chance you gave me, thank you. You taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about grace." I didn't say anything at first. I just folded the note, tucked it into my apron pocket, and nodded. "You've learned well," I said softly. That night, as I sat alone in my room, I took out the two notes, the one Amir had written months ago and the one Sarah had given me. Two messages written at different times by two different people, yet somehow connected. One spoke of understanding, the other of gratitude. Together they told a story, not of betrayal but of growth, not of loss but of healing. The card that had once divided us was gone, replaced by something far more valuable. Trust rebuilt through pain, love refined through imperfection. I realized then that life rarely gives us perfect endings. It gives us lessons wrapped in mistakes, redemption hidden in regret, and forgiveness disguised as weakness. But those who learn to see beyond the hurt find something far greater: peace. As I turned off the light and looked out at the moonlit sky, I thought of all the people who hold grudges, who let pride steal their chance at reconciliation. I wished they could see what I now understood. That sometimes the person who hurt you didn't mean to wound, they were just lost trying to survive. And sometimes the greatest act of strength isn't in walking away, but in staying forgiving and letting love rewrite the ending. In the soft quiet of that night, I smiled to myself. Life had come full circle. The same home that once echoed with silence was now alive again, with laughter, forgiveness, and a promise that even broken trust can bloom again, if you have the courage to nurture it.